Welcome back to Law and Crime, everybody. We're still talking about the Jason Van Dyke case. We are in verdict watch. The whole country is waiting for the verdict in this case. But, you know, the jury has a lot of options, and I want to talk about that right now with my very special guest, criminal defense attorney Matthew Mangino. Matthew, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So the jury has a lot of options here. They can go first-degree murder. They can go second-degree murder. They also have aggravated assault charges that they have to consider, 16, in fact. What do you think that they're considering here? I mean, do you think that second degree was really an important thing for the prosecution to add?
Well, certainly. I mean, obviously, they pursued this case as a first-degree murder. Second degree is an option here, obviously, if there was a situation where justification was a possibility, but it was unreasonable. Using deadly force was unreasonable under the circumstances. That could result in a second-degree murder conviction. And then you have a aggravated assault count for each of the 16 shots that were fired by Jason Van Dyke here. So the jury has a lot to go through, and they're going to take their time and make sure they understand the law and thoroughly examine all the evidence that's been presented in this case.
Or they could go not guilty across the board and say that he was justified in what he did. Now, the 16 aggravated assault, the way that I understand that is the prosecution is saying, hey, listen, Laquan McDonald was alive for every one of those shots. So every one of those shots has to be considered.
Well, that's true. And that's why we have 16 shots and we have 16 counts. If Laquan McDonald was alive as each one of these shots were fired, then that's an individual aggravated assault in each instance. But I think the jury in this case, based on one of their questions, is focusing on first or second degree murder at this point in their deliberations.
Yeah, I mean, the jury has a lot to consider. And just to correct myself, it's actually aggravated battery in Illinois, not assault, but it's still the same concept. We're going to talk more about this and what the jury may be considering. In fact, we heard from two alternates that were released that they were leaning towards a guilty verdict. That is huge to get an insight right now in this part of the case. But let's play some of the testimony from Jason Van Dyke, the defendant himself, when he took the stand, because you know the jury is going to be considering this testimony. So let's play some of that right now. Okay, so let's talk about the defendant on the witness stand right now. Matthew, one of the things that was interesting is when we talked about the jurors that were released yesterday, and they said they were leaning, two of the alternate jurors, they said they were leaning towards guilt. And one of the reasons is they said Van Dyke seemed very nervous on the stand, and he kept going back and forth on different accounts of what ultimately happened. In fact, if our viewers want to go, they can go to lawandcrime.com to see a great article written by Aaron Keller about this. But what did you think about his demeanor on the stand?
Well, yes, he did seem a bit nervous, and that's to be expected. Certainly there's a lot on the line here for him. He's charged with first-degree murder. This is a very traumatic situation for him, facing the type of penalties that he does as a result of the charges that are against him. The other thing that I thought was telling about what the alternate jurors said was that, number one, and we talked about this a bit yesterday, there were other officers at the scene who decided not to take action, certainly not to take action with regard to deadly force. And also there was the concern that he could have waited a little longer.
Right.
There was a taser on the way. Was there an alternative to deadly force in this situation? And at least one of the alternate jurors felt that there was, and I think that's compelling.
Yeah, and what we're trying to see is also if he's credible. What is he saying? Does it match up with the facts of the case? One of the things we just heard him say was that he wanted to get close enough to hit the car door into Laquan McDonald as a way to put him down. Well, is that true? Let's see, because in the testimony from Officer Joseph McGilligot, who is following this, was following right behind, let's see if that actually matches up. Okay, so that is a testimony from one of the officers that was there at the shooting. But Matthew, one of the interesting things, and you tell me, maybe I don't know, the jury was deliberating for about 5 hours yesterday. They're going to continue their deliberations today. Does that give you any indication about, are they really considering the different choices that they have? Do you think they're split? I mean, I know it's a short time, but what can we glean from that?
Well, I mean, this is a case that's been tried for 3 weeks. The jury is going to go through the evidence methodically. I think they're going to do their duty. I think they take their responsibility very seriously. I don't think we can make a lot out of 5 hours of deliberation on the first day. There's a lot of evidence to go through, and the law in this particular case is very important, because they're not only looking at the specific statutes with regard to first and second degree murder and aggravated battery, but they're also considering justification. You know, whether Jason Van Dyke was justified in the action that he took. So I'm not surprised by this, but I think we may learn more as there are other questions that develop and as they continue to deliberate.
Yeah, and it's not an easy task for them to do. So we're going to have to see which way they go. We will take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking more about Jason Van Dyke. Stay tuned. Okay, so let's talk about this, Matthew. Do you believe that the debate on Mr. Kavanaugh will ultimately be concluded and that this will advance to a full vote on the Senate floor?
Full vote on the Senate floor. I think that at least Senator Flake and Senator Collins felt as though that their fears have been allayed by this FBI abbreviated investigation. So I look for it to go to a full Senate vote. That doesn't mean necessarily that everybody is going to be satisfied with this process, or that the public is going to be satisfied with this process. It certainly wasn't the type of investigation or expansive investigation that many thought it would be when it was decided last week to go forward.
So even though our viewers watching, even if this does advance to a full vote, doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get confirmed?
No, it doesn't. It means only that the full Senate will take this matter up on Saturday. And I think the Republicans have somewhat of a problem. At least one senator is not going to be available on Saturday. And so that narrows this threshold of getting 51 votes for confirmation. We're still up in the air with regard to Senator Murkowski. We're not exactly sure now about Senators Collins and Flake. And then Senator Manchin from West Virginia, a Democrat, is undecided as well. So I still think this is an open issue, and I think the Senate could go either way. But I think it will advance to a full vote on Saturday.
Well, usually Saturdays are a day of hanging out and spending time with family and resting. I can guarantee you, whichever way this goes, it is going to get very ugly. When we come back, we are going to be back live, and we will hear more of what's happening in the Brett Kavanaugh nomination hearing. Stay tuned. All right, you're getting a different perspective from Senator Dianne Feinstein. I'm back here with Matthew Mangino, criminal defense attorney, to talk more about it. One of the big issues that you believe the Democrats will have to consider and that they have brought up is the point about this FBI investigation. Are you a little concerned by the fact that 40 witnesses were not interviewed? I mean, that seems a bit strange. Even if you support Judge Kavanaugh, what would the justification be for not interviewing him or Dr. Ford?
I don't think there's any justification for that. I mean, if you're going to do a supplemental background investigation, and these issues have come up with regard to Dr. Ford and other women who've made allegations with regard to Judge Kavanaugh, at the very minimum, you should interview Dr. Ford and you should interview Judge Kavanaugh. The idea that they've been interviewed by the Judiciary Committee doesn't seem appropriate to me. An FBI background investigation should follow up on all leads.
Yeah,
there's also,
and that's the question. That's really the question that a lot of people are having and a lot of people are disturbed about. We saw the protests. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay. Okay, this is pretty exciting. Which way will this go? You're looking at a procedural vote happening right now to determine whether or not this debate will be over and this nomination will advance for a full Senate floor vote. This is pretty incredible, groundbreaking. I know I have never seen anything like this happen like this over the past 3 months. It's pretty incredible to watch both ways. I think we're waiting for the next speaker, but I'm back here with Matthew Mangino. So Senator Dianne Feinstein made some pretty strong points. At the same time, there are those who would say that, with his judicial temperament, he was being attacked. Which way do you see it about his behavior in that hearing from last week?
Well, I was surprised by his temperament during the hearing. I think an interesting question to ask Judge Kavanaugh, would he put up with a litigant or a lawyer in his courtroom who spoke over him, who yelled, who was indignant, who came up with outlandish conspiracy theories? I don't think Judge Kavanaugh or any judge would put up with that in their courtroom. But that's exactly what we saw from a nominee to the United States Supreme Court in a Senate committee room. I think the issue of credibility, the issue of temperament is extremely important here. And just like on the trials that we watch on Law and Crime Network, credibility is an issue. And I think when we look at credibility, when we look at, what his testimony was and the manner that he presented it, is very troubling.
Is this about the truth, though? Are we ever going to really know what happened 36 years ago? You have two people giving two different accounts, two different stories, and in the aftermath of that, we've heard multiple news reports about, this one contradicts this testimony. These witnesses say this didn't happen. These witnesses say this is what her background is. This is what his background is. So if you're an average citizen trying to make sense of all this, do you even know what really happened 36 years ago?
No, we probably won't really ever know what happened 36 years ago. And what I think is important, though, is that we heard from a number of senators from both sides of the aisle that Dr. Ford was credible, that she was a credible witness. Well, if she's a credible witness, then you have to believe what she said. And she said that she was, sexually assaulted 36 years ago. It's troubling on one hand to say, she was a great witness, she was brave, she was credible, but we don't believe her. And that's troubling.
Yeah, let's play a little bit of Brett Kavanaugh arguing with the senators from last week in case anybody missed it. Okay, so Matthew, what we're seeing here is what we expected, a really fiery exchange about Brett Kavanaugh. One of the big aspects of it is, that he's not, when he's ultimately going to have to rule on these big decisions, he's not going to be impartial. What do you think?
Well, Senator Schumer is talking about independence, and I think his concern is that when you have a fiery response during a confirmation hearing, and you basically say that this has been a conspiracy by Democrats as far back as revenge by the Clintons, that your impartiality is in question at that point. And if you're dealing with issues and you've shown, at least under the pressure of a confirmation hearing, that you believe that this is all a partisan attack, then your independence is in question. Not to mention your credibility and your temperament because of the way you responded to these issues.
I will say what was pretty interesting when he made the point that it seems like a very long time ago that the discussion was revolving around Kavanaugh's actual decisions that he authored, and now that seems like a far cry. But that discussion is coming back again in these statements. We will take a quick break. We'll be back. Stay tuned here on Law and Crime. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the bigger aspect of this that maybe not everybody's touching upon. Matthew, the Supreme Court is now back in session, and they only have 8 justices. That's a little scary.
Well, it would be a little scary had we not just went through that for about 9 months when Merrick Garland's nomination never came to the Senate floor. So I think the justices are in a position to handle the caseload. Certainly, you're going to have 4 to 4 issues when you only have 8 justices. But I think the Supreme Court can handle the caseload.
Yeah, and those floor-to-floor splits, the lower court decision becomes the law of the land, because even if you get somebody new in, they're not going to make a decision based if they didn't hear the oral arguments. Basically, we need 9 Supreme Court justices one way or another. I don't like having an incomplete court. We'll talk more about it when we get back. Stay tuned here on Law&Crime. Okay, let's bring back on Matthew Mangino to talk more about it. So what are you making right now from the statements? If someone's neutral, they hear one statement, it's very strong. They hear the other one, it's very strong. I mean, they're both making good points.
Well, I think we're at a point now where, whether the supplemental investigation was done to everybody's satisfaction or not, we're at a point where the Senate has to vote on this. If it's partisan, it's partisan. Yeah. Whatever the vote is, we need to move forward and find out where the senators are on this and make a decision.
And we're going to get an answer.
If they don't confirm them, go in another direction.
Exactly. We need an answer one way or another. Let's go back live. All right, everybody. So they're taking the roll call vote on whether or not to advance the nomination. So, Matthew, just explain to us, what is this cloture motion? What does this mean for anybody who doesn't know?
Well, as I understand it, they're voting now to determine whether or not Brett Kavanaugh's nomination should go to the full floor for a Senate vote.
And this is common practice, but a very unusual situation. Would you say the biggest argument in favor of the Democrats is they say, hey, listen, we confirm Neil Gorsuch. He was a Republican nominee. We're willing to do that, but you submitted a flawed candidate.
Well, certainly. I mean, initially when Brett Kavanaugh was being vetted and when he was before the Senate for questioning, a lot of it had to do with the decisions that he's made and, his involvement in other aspects of the government, including the Starr investigation. And then it evolved into his character and his credibility and his temperament. And we had this extension of time to further vet him by the FBI. The Democrats don't appear to be satisfied with that additional investigation. And so now this matter ultimately has to come to a head. The president isn't going to pull his nomination. The Senate isn't going to let it languish in committee. It's going to go to the full floor, and everybody's going to have to vote, their conscience or whatever else they consider important in this process. And we know where a significant majority of the senators are going in terms of their vote. There's only a few undecided senators. That could tip the scale one way or the other because it's only a 51-49 majority for the Republicans. So this matter's still up in the air, but it needs to be resolved.
It does. Well, the reason we're not live we are live, but the reason we're not listening to it is because it's very hard to hear the yays and the nays, but we will get an answer one way or another. So anybody just joining us, this is a cloture vote, which would basically end debate, move the vote to the full Senate floor. It should be noted that as part of this cloture process, there establishes a 30-hour window before a final vote could be held. This rule was established because it eliminates any opportunity for opposing senators to filibuster and delay the vote, which makes sense. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back live. Stay tuned here on Law and Crime. Wow, this is pretty incredible. We were listening to the roll call vote in terms of ending the debate and moving this to a full vote, advancing the nomination. And what did we hear? Lisa Murkowski, who's the United States Senator from Alaska, was one of those swing votes. She voted no. This is pretty incredible. I think we have audio back, so let's go live. Okay, so everybody, this is not the vote, the final vote to confirm Brett Kavanaugh. This is really to end the debate and allow it to advance to a full vote, which would most likely happen tomorrow. But what is fascinating is you're seeing how this may play out, including Lisa Murkowski, who was one of those swing senators, voting no, that she does not want this nomination to advance. I want to jump back in right now. Let's go. Okay, Matthew, as we're watching this live, we can't help but think if there is a tie, Vice President Mike Pence would break it. But if there's a majority one way or another, this is really could be the end all be all if there's a majority in favor of no.
Well, yes. I mean, this case never goes, or this nomination never goes to the full Senate for a vote. At least not at this point. If there's a majority no with regard to cloture, then we don't have a vote on Saturday with regard to his confirmation.
In other words, if the debate continues, if there's a no on cloture, if the debate continues, isn't it possible President Trump could say, I'm done with this, I'm revoking his nomination, and I'm just going to try to send someone else up there? I mean, or what is there, a further FBI investigation? Is that how does the debate continue then?
Well, we know that Judge Kavanaugh has been emphatic that he's never going to ask to have his name withdrawn. The president could certainly withdraw his nomination, or this debate could go on, whether it results in a more thorough FBI investigation, or maybe it results in bringing Judge Kavanaugh before the Judiciary Committee again, or maybe the full Senate wants to have some debate about his nomination. I mean, we don't know what direction this will go, but we certainly know if they don't have a majority, the Republicans, for cloture, that this matter is not going to be voted on Saturday.
I'm curious, this is an open roll call. Everybody lists in a public forum for everyone to see which way they're going. You think that's a good practice, or would you say it would be better if it was, anonymous? No,
I don't think anonymous is really ever good. We need transparency, and these senators who are elected, who have a responsibility, who have a job to do, should be willing to stand up in public and let their constituents, and in this case, the nation, know where they stand and how they vote. That's important. I mean, that's a key to democracy, is someone being willing to stand up and take responsibility for a decision that they make, that they've been elected to make.
Do you think Brett Kavanaugh, who's most likely watching this, is shocked that it's come to this? I mean, when he first accepted the nomination?
Yeah, there's no question that Judge Kavanaugh has to be shocked by the turn of events. I mean, certainly just a couple of weeks ago, this nomination was on a line, straight to confirmation. But now it's sort of unraveled, at least to some point. We're going to find out very shortly if it's off the rails right now.
So, Matthew, the clock has run down. I think we might want to jump in there. We're going to stand by, but this is very fascinating, seeing this in real time unfold, and everybody is watching this because this really, I mean, we saw the protests yesterday. We see the commentary on social media. We see in the news. Everybody is following this because this is a really, really big decision for the future of our country, one way or another. We are just waiting to jump back in there. The roll call vote, the time has ended. So I want to bring back Matthew to talk about this. You saw the protests yesterday. In a way, it's great that people are expressing their civic duty, being able to express this opinion. Was there anything that alarmed you about the protests?
Well, no, I think that it's a good thing for citizens to get out and express their views. I mean, I certainly am not supportive of harassing people who are at the dinner or other things like that, whether they be senators or members of the White House staff. But making your feelings known and being involved enough to go out and want to express yourself in a public way, I think is positive for this country.
So, Matthew, I have to interrupt. We have just gotten word that it was 51 in favor, 49 not in favor. This looks like it will go to a full vote probably tomorrow. The Republican side must be pleased. The Democratic side, not so. By all indications, Matthew, if this is the way this came out right now on the motion to end the debate and advance the nomination, is this what we're going to see tomorrow?
Not necessarily. I think that Senator Collins and Senator Flake have still said they're undecided. You have to bring this matter to a close, and they obviously believe that it should come to a close. Whether they've made a decision on how they're going to vote or not is yet to be seen. But they both agree that this matter needs to be closed, and that's what a vote tomorrow will do.
So in other words, Senator Murkowski, who voted no, you could say, hey, listen, she just wanted to continue the debate, wanted more information about it. But now that that issue has been settled, she may vote in favor of confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh.
She may, and that might be the alternative. But the other alternative is that, hey, Senator Flake and Senator Collins think this matter should come to a head, think that senators should stand up and make their vote, and maybe they vote the opposite tomorrow, not in favor of confirmation, and that ends this process.
Okay, so we're going to switch gears here. We'll talk more about this in a minute. Thank you so much, Matthew. I think we are live right now in Jason Van Dyke. I want to confirm that. I think there's some activity in the courtroom. So let's jump there. I believe there's discussion about the threat to Mr. Van Dyke and his family. Let's go live. Okay, so you saw there was some activity right there in the Jason Van Dyke courtroom. I think this is about the bail revocation process. So what we've learned, Matthew, is that Mr. Van Dyke's daughter was being threatened at school. Is this a common thing that you see where high-profile cases, their family members may be in danger?
Well, certainly. I mean, the more news and media attention that a case garners, obviously you get people who are unsettled, who have problems with regard to what they see or hear in the media. And it's not uncommon. It's unfortunate that things like this happen, but it's not uncommon.
All right, Matthew, thank you so much. We really appreciate your insight into this case as well as what was happening in the Brett Kavanaugh case. Thanks for staying by and being great on that real-time feed.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, and it's been fun.
Have a great weekend. Thank you very much.